of Cousins condos leader, fan radio network.
It's not about the dollars, but it is about what the dollars represent.
And KFAN.com. Nicely played by the producer of the program. 1 minute and 57 seconds past the hour, 3 o'clock. That is Central Standard Time. Welcome back to the Bumper to Bumper program on a calm before the Snownami Wednesday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. I am the host of the program, former Inkstein Wretch newspaper of the Twin Cities. First name Dan, last name spelled Barreiro, I before E, except in Barreiro. Guardsy is the producer, as I just mentioned, and we're just tickled pink that you are along for today's, I think, full 3.5 hour ride, correct?
I think that's the plan. Because
my sources say the Wild game, they're at home, but it's going to start like between 10 and 11 o'clock tonight.
National TV again,
man,
I think.
Man, I mean, it's amazing how late. I think literally the opening tap is slated right now for 8:48.
Yeah, that's a lot of
Central
bonus
time.
fallness.
That's
a lot of bonus
fallness. Yeah, but he won't. He'll mail it in.
That's true.
You know, he whines about the time. They'd give him as much time as he wants to spread his wings, but he won't. He doesn't want to work that hard.
Usually he just kicks it to whatever interview Joe O'Donnell did.
Exactly it, unfortunately. By the way, speaking of, I mentioned we're on Standard Time. Did you see who is now leading the charge to eliminate daylight saving time? It's your guy, Trump.
The president-elect.
The president-elect. I don't know who came to him, what Fox show made a big issue of this, but he's all worked up about it. I am on record. I continue to be on record as a major proponent of daylight saving time for reasons we don't have to get into again. Should be obvious. But interestingly, here's where it gets funky. There's a lot of people, including a lot of lefties, who before Trump got into this also wanted daylight saving time eliminated. So what do they do now?
That's the bit.
Are they, well, no, I'm going to be consistent. It's going to be, well, I can't like something that he likes, even though the whole idea is preposterous to me. Now, is this going to be one of those first day executive
it could be
pronouncements that he makes?
It could be. I do like the idea, though, just to troll, of take stuff that's not life or death, that's not critically important.
Yes.
Like daylight savings time. We'll survive, I think, one way or the other, whatever executive order.
A lot of people killed probably at the bus stop, but I digress.
But just grab a bunch of those that you know lefties are on board with and
just
champion them.
Right.
It'd be a great troll job.
It actually would be.
I'd actually really support that because you could do it that way. It'd be fun.
It would be, yeah. Well, there's going to be, I think, plenty of opportunities to go exactly down that road.
8:52 puck drop, I'm told. So
8:52.
Even more fallness.
Yeah, that's it.
He also called me a dink. Can you call people dinks?
You can. You got to be careful.
Yeah.
On where you go with the end. If it ends up being a C, then you got a problem. Right? Then I don't think technically. I mean, it can be said.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll knock you off the air, but I wouldn't recommend it.
It's a pretty funny rip, though.
I don't even know what the origination. I've never liked that word, that slang term. I'm afraid to ask how it originated.
We'll ask Kevin because he apparently uses it on a daily basis.
I didn't even. I mean, how many? You want to talk about me using dated terms and references? Isn't that about as dated as you could get? Dink.
Well, have you ever seen like his wardrobe that he wears? I mean, he's still rocking the 2003 NHL All-Star Game jacket. I think 04 actually.
No question, Dan. Cousins condos repossessed. It's official. Story broke, I think, last night, didn't it? Wasn't it after our show?
Yes, it was.
If
it was during the show, we would have had to stay on.
Well, definitely.
And go to like 8 or 9.
At first, I thought we didn't miss that, did we? That would have been pretty embarrassing.
I hope not.
Kirk Cousins demoted, and it sounds like it ain't going to be just like a 1-week deal. Now, there's not that many. What do they have? What do we have? They have probably 3 games left too.
Right.
But it sounds like they're running the course with Penix, and that it's probably over for Kirk Cousins. Period in Atlanta, Georgia. So. The way I understand it, here's how it's going to go financially for those who are concerned about his financial wherewithal moving forward. He's probably going to be released in March with what they call in the business a post-June 1 designation. And that means he will still make next year from the Falcons or another team $27.5 million. That cannot be taken away from him. Nor can the $62.5 million that he's making or will make this year. Now, the bad news is that $10 million guarantee in 2026, that's gone. Going to lose that. And in effect, if you do the math on all this, the Falcons will have paid $90 million for not even one full season of Kirk Cousins. So here's my question on the table. Is this a schadenfreude day now that it's official that Cousins condos have been or will be repossessed? In this town, is this schadenfreude? Because ordinarily, I would think the answer to the question would be not so much. Even for people who didn't particularly love him as the starting quarterback here, there wasn't that much necessarily enmity. But then I think the song and dance that played out regarding the negotiating period, not ultimately what he took, which was clearly a better deal than what the Vikings were willing to offer, but it was also, more than that, I think it was his rhetoric that for the first time got him in trouble. Or I think, if we're being honest, there were a lot of folks who took those comments down. You played it, one of them, earlier in the show, and said, I got that down in the legal pad. I'm saving that. And I'm going to see how this thing goes because I'm annoyed with the rhetoric. Whatever word salad he was coming up with here, he would have been better suited just saying, yeah, I'm going to take the most money I can get. Maybe I shouldn't, but that's what I'm going to do. Sue me, whatever. I feel bad about the number of times that my driveway got plowed and shoveled out, but I got to do what I got to do. But he kind of played it too cute. Cousins cute, one could say. And so to that extent, I do wonder if today many of those same folks got their legal pad out and say, oh, yeah, I remember when you said that. Yeah, I am kind of enjoying this. I am kind of having a schadenfreude moment. And I also think, too, part of what makes it easier for people to go schadenfreude on the bit is we're not struggling at the quarterback position.
We are feeling it.
We're feeling it.
Yep.
We all have done the math. We've all done the numbers. The kind of season, relatively speaking, that Sam Darnold has had compared to Cousins, especially the last month. And you factor that part of it in, and you go, yeah, I'm gonna enjoy the hell out of this. Because let's be honest, Cousins is going to be fine. It may not be the way he wants to end his career. I don't know. Maybe somebody else, maybe the Niners, who've always had a peculiar fascination with him, maybe they go after him.
I bet he gets another shot somewhere.
So he might get another shot somewhere, although I tend to think there's a real good chance that it's over for him as a starter for any meaningful length of time. And I think some of that might well be that the injury did more damage to him than we even maybe anticipated, given that, we're supposed to be in a much better place medically on coming back even from that kind of surgery, even at his relatively advanced age. So I think there is significant, because I think we're haughty right now. We're
feeling it. Yes,
we're inhaling the fumes, man. This is fun. We may not be on the top of the world, but we're not far, and we have a chance to be on top of the world, even with the home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So I think there's going to be a lot of schadenfreude, okay, Kirk, this is what you wanted. You got what you wanted. What do you think now? Been replaced by Michael Penix with really still a playoff berth at stake, right?
Yeah.
And so my guess, if I'm doing like a 0 to 10 schadenfreude meter, although I'd rather use a different term, I guess, for the purposes of alliteration, I think it's 8.5 in this town right now.
I was going to say 7.5, but I think that might be me trying to be more humble about it. You know what I mean? That might be
trying to take the semi-high road.
Yeah. Because that was my first thought. I'm just envisioning what they're thinking at TCO and what Kevin O'Connell thought when he saw it last night, and Kwesi, what they thought last night. Because remember, they were bitter about how it all went down in the combine, or at the combine.
It seemed to turn on a dime, and it was even KOC rhetoric that clued us in that, something has changed here.
So I think that adds to it as well, that they feel like he did them kind of dirty in that way. And so I think everybody should be feeling it right now. I had the Jerry Seinfeld, that's a shame, in my head.
Yes.
And I've continued to have it in my head.
And that's a very effective form of schadenfreude.
It is.
Yeah.
And, he's going to be fine. It's hard to feel bad for him in any meaningful way. But that's what he wanted. He went there. He went there under the guise that you're going to be our guy. We're giving you all this money. We're not doing the quarterback in waiting bit. And this is really a continuation of all the going back to April when they drafted Penix out of nowhere, and everybody was stunned. I think including the owner of the team, trying to figure out exactly what they were doing. And so, I love it.
Well, and it's, again, if you want to separate the issues here, it's further utter and complete validation of the decision the Vikings made. Now, you could say, well, the Vikings were willing to give him enough to keep him come back for this year, but they definitely made a significant distinction about how far they were willing to go to make absolutely sure that Cousins did not walk off that door, and they look brilliant based on the especially with the announcement that was made last night. Good text coming in early. A lot more to get to on this subject, and then we'll prepare you for the rest of the program that will include the Wednesday regulars, Glenn Mason and Pat Kessler, both in studio. Is it a Schadenfreude candle that I light today? Let's take a look at today's scent. In the holiday spirit, this is what they call in the business a Fraser fir. Are you familiar with that kind of fir?
That's the tree that's in our sunroom as we speak.
Is that right?
If you have the means.
Nothing quite like it. Oh, so you bowed to societal pressures and got a real one again?
I bow to familial pressures.
Yeah, those kind of societal pressures.
Yeah, the familial pressures of we want a real tree.
All right. I didn't set the place on fire.
Yeah, be careful. There's not too much that's flammable in there.
No, it's all metal, isn't it?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah.
Probably ruin the microphones. They're very expensive for sure.
We just got them, too.
Man, a bunch of good texts coming in as we react to the news that was announced, I think, last night that Kirk Cousins, the former Vikings quarterback, has been demoted and probably, by all accounts, is done after less than one full season as the starter for the Atlanta Falcons. We talk about the football gods. We like to think that occasionally they do intercede and do what might be viewed as the right thing. Maybe send a message that the way things were handled by number 8 here might have gotten their attention. I don't know if we believe that or not. Sometimes I believe in the sports gods. Sometimes I don't. It is worth noting that, what's the date today? Today's December 18. 6 weeks ago, he was the belle of the ball in Atlanta, Georgia. That's it. 6 weeks ago. I think Atlanta was 6-3 for the season at that point. 17 touchdown passes, 7 picks. That's a little high in the picks, you could say, but in a sense, from a record standpoint, they're kind of getting exactly what they want, right? They beat Tampa Bay, and Dallas. He completes 80% of his passes in those 2 games, 0 picks, and 7 touchdowns. And then, of course, all hell breaks loose. They lose to the Saints by 3. They had chances to steal that game late, but there was a Cousins pick. Then they get humiliated by the Broncos, 38-6. And then he had that 4-pick game against the Chargers. There was a pick 6 in there as well. That was really sort of the difference in the ball game. And then even in the fourth quarter in that game where they're trying to come back, he threw a pair of interceptions. Game against us, he actually had some moments, right? But
Yeah,
ultimately,
especially early,
although he had one bad interception, or at least that I remember. He threw two. One in particular I thought was awful. And they lose. We end up winning that one 42-21. And then, of course, they beat the Raiders, but it's almost like they beat the Raiders in spite of a very feeble offensive performance. He did finally throw a touchdown pass. But it is a reminder how quickly these things can turn. That's 6 weeks ago that it is utterly and completely flipped, one could say. Let me give you a few texts, kind of a sampling? A sampling of how people are reacting. Kirk is a total con artist with an overinflated ego. Well, some would say he has no ego. Don't know if I agree, but that's why some people found him enduring. Dan, this is from Going Postal Guy. I direct my schadenfreude towards the people like Charch who drool over the shiny, sparkling stats, even though all Kirk ever proved to be was an average quarterback, always hovering around 500 and never capable of overcoming imperfection around him. Those are the people I'm directing my snark at, not Cousins himself, which is an interesting way to look at it.
Charged with a long post today responding to those haters.
Yeah.
Yes.
Schadenfreude, whose misery are we enjoying? Or better question, who in this scenario is miserable? Also, wouldn't you have to care? I suppose it's possible that some haven't moved on from Kirk. Well, I think it's disingenuous to believe that we don't care. Because, let's face it, the whole sports bit is emotional investment. And the notion that, we're past that, we move past that, we don't need to be... It's not how... You don't turn on and off your emotional investment like a faucet. I just don't believe it. So, if you were invested in him or even believed in the concept of him, and by the way, he was on his way last year to what certainly to that point had been a wildly successful season.
He was dealing.
He had 18 touchdowns and wasn't throwing that many picks.
They were leading 24-3 at Lambeau Field.
That's exactly right. But I think the notion that, you're not even thinking about that anymore. No, that's not how... If you believe emotion is a part of what drives our interest in sports, of course you're still interested. Or of course you're still going to pay attention. And of course you're going to have, I think, it's not all that surprising. You go, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, Kirk. What do you think about what represents what now? Is it petty? Yeah,
yes.
To a certain extent it is. But I don't think anybody has to apologize for it because emotions are what drives all of this nonsense. So the idea that you're going to, why would I care anymore? He's not here. Come on, man. He was just here. How many years was he here? 5. Utterly, he was the guy, for better or for worse, that the Vikings were going to continue to invest in. And again, if there wasn't another team that offered the kind of deal that Atlanta did, which, quite frankly, still blows me away, that any team would. Not just because I don't think Cousins is worthy of another one of those deals, but because of the injury, the significant injuries coming off at an advanced age. That's, to me, I guess, what I look back and say, that's what's gobsmacking.
It was such a big leap.
I mean, it's a remarkably big leap for a guy who, again, had one playoff victory, even though you don't have to put all that on him, and certainly was capable of streaky stretches where he looked like a really good quarterback. But I do think he, in my view, has always been one of those guys where if you are wowed by numbers, fantasy numbers, you're going to get more seduced than you should be about what he represents in terms of giving you the best chance to win or elevate a team and be consistent in that regard.
I always go back, even though I was president of Cousins Condos.
You were honest about it.
And I don't apologize for that.
No.
I always go back to when we had John Feinstein on shortly after Cousins was signed. It was about something else. It might have even been basketball. And because he's a Washington-based guy, right?
Yes.
So he knows what's going on with the Commanders, the Redskins at the time. And he always had a comment that stuck with me that for all the numbers and for all the glamour and for all the money, he goes, you look up at the end of the day, Dan, and he's a 500 quarterback.
Yeah, right.
That's what he is. And again, it doesn't all go back to that, but you look at what he's been even since then, save for a couple of spikes, certainly the 13-4 year. That's essentially what he's been. I mean, he got benched as a 500 quarterback in Atlanta, 7-7, straight up, after starting, as you just mentioned, 6-3. It's an interesting comment that just keeps coming back to me, or has this season as he's kind of struggled.
Kirk's benching is like selling a stock, and then 6 months later, it crashes. So you feel good you got out when you did. Exactly. The Vikings, this way I talked about for a segment, they should feel good.
Yep.
That whatever temptation they might have had to say, man, we are invested in them. KOC has gotten the best out of him. Let's roll the dice. He's going to come back strong enough, and with our infrastructure, we're going to be fine. But they held firm, at least firmer than Atlanta did, in not being willing to give all the extras that Atlanta, no doubt, is now, regretting. So, yeah, that part of it, that's a different kind of schadenfreude for the organization, because I'm sure KOC is going to say, I'm not going to revel in the football misery of somebody else. That's not how I work. That's not how I operate. But from an organizational standpoint, schadenfreude, there should be some celebration that, yeah, we've been vindicated. Now, there's another piece to that, and that's how good Darnold has been. But you put those two things together, and they're probably pretty high on themselves at TCO right now. I mean, that can change pretty abruptly if you get to the postseason and lose the opener, but, that's sort of where we are now with the news that broke yesterday. Somebody asked also, should we, do we want him as a backup next year? That's been going out there. Well, no, because I don't.
He knows the offense.
He does know the offense.
You need a guy to just keep it straight when the starter goes out.
Cousins, I guess the question is, if he does not have an opportunity to be a starter anyplace else, or any place, wherever he's going to go is going to be as a backup, A, would he do that? And B, would he be intriguing here? Because we're like O'Hare Airport, the Christmas Eve, man, where the instead of the planes piling up around, the greater Chicagoland area preparing to land, we got so many quarterbacks,
right,
that we got a traffic jam at the quarterback position. I mean, it's almost dizzy to think about, right? We might have Darnold back. We might have Daniel. Well, we're probably not going to have Daniel Jones back.
Well, that kind of depends on Darnold, don't
that
we
could
think?
be on Darnold, depend on Darnold. And then we got like 4 other guys under well, they're not all under contract for next year. So the short answer is no. I don't have any desire to have.
Unless they really like the schools here and he wants to get back together with some of his tennis partners.
Yeah. Well, something to be said for that. I mentioned Glenn Mason in studio in about a half hour. I hope we break down, among other things, Indiana, Notre Dame. That's one of the Friday night. Is that the only game Friday night? I have to double check.
Yes, I think there's 3 Saturday.
There's 3 Saturday, yeah. So they're the prime time game Friday night. And we'll get a live report from him on his trip for the first time, he said, ever. He attended Army-Navy weekend. Huge, impressive performance by Navy.
Big time.
Man, they were dominant. They not only won, they dominated that game. I watched a decent amount of
it.
Some
great plays, too.
Yes, outstanding.
Throwing the ball all over the place, trick plays. It was great.
Running, it was. How about their fake punt to the big tub of goo? I mean, it was like a lineman is about 6'4", 310 pounds, and man, he galloped.
He's moving.
He was moving, I think, all the way inside the 10-yard line. And then Kessler will join at about 5:30 this. Ladies and gentlemen, as if we don't have enough quarterback options for the 2025 season, Minnesota Vikings got another one. Did you see the Ted Bridgewater news?
Well, I did, if it's what I'm thinking about, that he's ready to make a comeback.
Teddy Bridgewater coached last Saturday his Miami, Florida, Northwestern high school football team to a state title, and immediately upon doing so says, I want to go back to the league. Here's the quote, that's the plan. My team knows that's the plan. We wanted to win at the state championship, and then coach goes back to the league, see what happens, and then come back February in the offseason, continue coaching high school football. We'll see how it plays out. Here's your backup. So now think of all the options we're going to have. It's almost obscene how many options we're going to have in 2025. Right?
Well, this seems like he's coming into the league now for the end of the season, doesn't he? Because he said if he's coming back in February, what does that mean? If he's going back to coach.
I thought he meant like the next year. I could be wrong. I thought
maybe
this was... Well, maybe you're right. It's not very specific here.
It's very Gordon Bombay, though. Coach the Mighty Ducks, and then go back to a minor league tryout and give it a shot.
Yeah, it's vague. It's not. And I think this is a Rappaport Pelissero NFL Network insider story. He said this on Tuesday's edition of the Insider. So I don't know if they fleshed that out with him or if he fleshed out. I took it to mean he ain't going to jump into any place right now, and it would be more for next season, and then it would be then after that season, the following February, then he could go back. But
so here's what he said later.
Okay.
We'll see how the next week and a half, 2 weeks play out. Might be signing with a team or something, and then returning back to coach high school football in February, so we'll see.
Do we have room to sign him as a backup? We got too many options.
I was going to say, he'd have to be a practice squad guy like Daniel Jones.
Here, maybe that's enough. When you got the quarterback whisperer, maybe you just say, I want to
take whatever I can get from KOC.
I want to soak it all in. It's pretty interesting. Somebody said or wrote, should we take back criticism of the Penix pick? I would say no, because I don't think, rationally speaking, you ever intend to waste, for less than one full season, $90 million on a player at the quarterback position, unless his name might be Patrick Mahomes in his prime, or Joe Montana in his prime, or, Aaron Rodgers in his prime. Let's be realistic. Now, I'm in the group that also wondered whether the message you deliver to him when you made that pick also isn't worth the trouble. Then you're back to, well, then just go pick a quarterback early, or go the Vikings Darnold route. Get yourself a real bridge to Penix, because you love him, but you need one season just in case. You don't devote the financial resources and attention to Kirk Cousins if your heart's not in it. And to me, that was always the central contradiction of what they did.
Yeah, that's why you can't take back the criticism and go, see, they had the insurance policy. No one in their right mind thought they were going to need an insurance policy on March 11th, when they signed Kirk Cousins. You're not thinking...
No,
by the way,
certainly not in year one.
No, and especially Penix even, too, because he's not the usual college quarterback.
That's true.
He's been in college forever. He's 20-something years old, right? Mid-20s.
Yes.
So the sit and wait thing was never really going to make a lot of sense for him either.
No.
You mentioned Rodgers?
Yes.
Which button are you trying to find, by the way? Because I might be able to find it for you.
Seal approval. I thought it was B. Isn't it B or is it on A?
It should be on B, third column.
I think it's gone.
It's there.
Oh, it is there?
Yeah.
You sure?
I'll hit it. But you mentioned Rodgers.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, go ahead.
Bad season to be an Achilles surgeon. Like, this could be a cautionary tale just in general for 30-somethings that blow out their Achilles and need rehabilitation. Now, obviously, every individual is different, but there's two guys that had Achilles surgeries, right? And neither one of them in their mid to late 30s are playing very well this year.
Well, I think there's something, too, that in Cousins' case, it didn't look to me like, forget the mobility, which was always been an issue with him, but it looked even worse this year. It just didn't even look to me like he was zinging the ball. It wasn't driving the ball. Whether that he had difficulty in terms of just planting the same way, I have no idea. But even that did not look quite as good as it had been before.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Seal of Approval.
It goes, in this case, to future Minnesota Timberwolf Kevin Durant, who, to his credit, has said out loud what a few of us have said out loud, but it always means more when it comes from an NBA player, and in this case, an all-star player as well, and a Hall of Famer. He is utterly and completely destroying this latest gimmick to try to save NBA All-Star Game weekend. And I don't even completely I think it's 4 teams instead of 1. We'll divide all the All-Stars into 3 different teams, and then the 4th team, I think, will be the Wally Zerbiak team.
The Rising Stars team.
Here is what Durant had to say about it. All the formats are terrible, in my opinion, and we should just go back to East-West and just play a game. Now, there's a reason, in fairness to the commissioner, who probably would still prefer to do that they don't. And that's because the players don't want to try anymore. They've decided that there's not enough at stake. There's too much money in their contracts, and they can't even pretend to go through the motions. And if they did a better job of at least even going through the motions, then there'd be no need for the gimmick. But as I've said for years, and this one I just shake my head, when you have to try this hard, then you're defeated. And you're telling me that there is no way to save it. Because you tell me why it's having 4 teams, presumably then 2 games, right? That it's not going to actually be even more embarrassing. So instead of having 1 game where nobody tries, you're going to have a couple games where nobody tries, correct? It's not going to change the effort, which is we're going to be fine with 180 to now. They're not playing as long, as I understand.
Up to 40.
Up to 40, whatever.
Up to 40.
But within that, even if the scores don't get as high, you're still going to see the same lack of effort. So you can put me firmly in the camp that says stop trying. If you can't save it, eliminate it, and literally go to nothing but gimmicky skill sort of competition where effort or lack of effort won't be revealed to the same extent. And there is a part of me that, and I know some old-time players feel this way, that shakes my head and says, even knowing how much money is at stake, why is it this hard to get, all right, we don't expect 100%. Can we get to 68%, maybe 70%? Because I think now it's 42%, maybe.
I'd say maybe.
And maybe less than that, depending on the player. And it's just insane. Stop trying. You're not going to save it. It's not more interesting. In fact, I think it's actually more confusing. And I'm like Durant. Give me east-west or north-south or whatever it is. Just do it that way. It doesn't have to be the lottery and who's going to draft who. Every time you add a gimmick, you're doing is exposing how fraudulent this whole thing is and how desperate you are. And you end up reminding people that this game is dead. This concept is dead.
And the rising star bit, so is the theory that you don't want to lose to the rising stars?
That might be
because of ego?
What they're hoping.
And then
but I don't think that matters to you.
Probably not, but maybe it does. Maybe being shamed by the Wally Zerbiaks of the world, the rising stars of the first and second year players, maybe those guys are still excited about it enough to actually get some effort out of the veterans. I don't know. I don't love it either way.
It's absurd. But I'm glad, like I said, a current player spoke up to that degree. Now, what's funny is he hammered it, and then towards the end he said, well, maybe it's just me, and maybe it'll be fine, or whatever. Almost like he felt like he had to backtrack.
He's a nice guy.
And I don't even, to me, there was no need to backtrack. I would double down on that. And I don't know if other players have been asked about what he had to say, but he was 100% right.
SGA was asked.
Deserves the seal of approval.
About it, said there's the elephant in the room that we don't try, and his general thought was, I'd actually be for it if we did try a little bit.
Who said that?
SGA, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. John Morant was asked about it and said what KD said. He basically referred to the Kevin Durant statement, did that, and said, I got nothing to add except what KD said. He thinks it's stupid. I'm sure everybody will be asked about it here in the next few days since this news just broke.
What's the sounder we use when we abruptly want to depart and talk about something different? Or did we ever find one? We talked about developing one, but I don't know if we ever did.
I don't think we ever used one to turn the corner quickly. I don't think so.
Because there is no, this is going to sound like the non sequitur of all non sequiturs. We're pivoting. It's a major pivot because we've got not a lot of time before the top of the hour, and then Glenn Mason is going to be in studio. Kessler will be with us at 5:30. Close circuit to Kessler if he's listening. I don't think he had a subject I want to spend most of our time on, because we've spent on this show, because we've been pretty toy department-y lately, almost no time on it. The drone craze, whatever's happening in largely Jersey, New York, and a bunch in Jersey.
Mace was there.
Mace was there about the what it all means and whether are they hiding stuff from us? Is it really much ado about nothing? I do know a lot of times the photos, when they're really explored, it's an airplane is what it is, or people are getting confused. But at some point, I'd like to see if we can get to the bottom of it. So there might be a lot of drone talk between 5:30 and 6:30. Here's your pivot. I don't think you're going to be ready for this, and I'm not sure I was ready for it. It just kind of came up one of the social media channels I was on. 2024 was rife with unexpected fashion trends, including granny panties and assless chaps. You aware of either of those?
That they were like a new trend?
Yeah.
That they're coming back?
I don't know anything about either of those.
I mean, I know what they both are. Yeah, I guess I hadn't noticed there was an abundance of them recently.
Well, that's just the beginning. There was one trend, however, that was so far off everyone's bingo cards. You know what it was?
I don't.
Butt cleavage.
Excuse me?
Like the pantless revolution, fashion girls have Kendall Jenner to thank for this one. Since she donned a derriere plunging gown at the 2024 Met Gala, other daring darlings, there's your alliteration, like Katy Perry and Zendaya, am I pronouncing that right?
Yes.
Zendaya,
yep.
have taken to the bold in the following months. It was only a matter of time, therefore, before fashion's biggest provocateur would embrace the style and further the booty-bearing agenda in not one, but two rump-forward looks.
You've seen one man with cleavage. You've seen them all.
Over the weekend, the Down the Drain author attending the opening of Yayoi Kusama's exhibit at Melbourne's National Gallery of Victoria, expertly matching the affair's locale, Fox wore a look that could rival the artwork around her. That's Julia Fox, if I've not given you the first name. Designed by Catholic Guilt to resemble the chainmail dresses, Fox wore a dress crafted from, quote, hundreds of thousands of jump rings woven by hand for 700 hours. Per the designer, the circles were a nod to Kusama's famed polka dots and her chandelier of grief.
That is a nice package.
With skinny straps and a fitted silhouette, the floor-length number was so cohesively created that it almost resembled a crocheted dress. Styled by Brianna Andalori, it featured a smattering of 3D embossed circles. But it
Why
was
don't you put your pants back on?
the
Socky?
back was the scene stealer. Open like a corset, chains kept the piece in place instead of a lace-up design. It was a massive cutout past the back, however, that flaunted Fox's crack.
Where are we, America?
Flaunted Fox's crack. And there's the dress. And her crack is flaunted. I can confirm. The crack has been flaunted in this particular outfit.
It's a flaunting crack.
There's no doubt about it. And for a coordinated look, you always want to unify. She wore a headband and bag also woven using the same chainmail technique.
Believe.
A week prior, the uncut gem star was similarly bum forward. That's the term for it. Bum forward as she attended something called the Fashion Awards 2024 at the Royal Albert Hall in London.
He takes pride in his length.
Seemingly inspired by bygone eras, her entire corseted gown looked like the underpinnings of women from centuries past. The sauciness, though, all modern. Not only did her corset's lace-up opening slide way past her knees, showing the slightest sliver of cleavage, her dress was also utterly diaphanous, fully flaunting. There it is, her entire butt. I can confirm there's her butt.
Excuse me?
It's entire. I mean, there's not much butt that you can't see in this particular outfit. So there you have it. And this is one of your favorite websites. This reporting comes from Alyssa Lapid via Bustle, BUSTLE.com.
I thought for sure it was New York Post, the way that you were reading it.
It could have been.
And because you check that every day.
Butt cleavage.
Just in time for the holiday season. Holiday parties coming up. New Year's parties coming up.
Bradshaw by KFAN text line 64686. This is, I think, a trend advanced by women in this case. Let us know if you intend to advance the butt cleavage cause during the holiday party season.
Well, I have to imagine there's a bunch of plumbers already at 64686 that say the Kardashians are stealing their material. They've been doing this for decades.
Tom writes, all chaps are by definition assless.
That's true.
The lack of ass covering is part and parcel of chaps. Is that true?
Yeah.
I'm not a great...
But that wasn't But what you were talking about there, I don't think were chaps. Chaps were part of it, but there was something else. There was another variation of it, I think.
Beast, you just love to say assless chaps, don't you? I've heard you say that at least 50 times over the past 20 years, and I giggle every time I hear it.
It is in your vernacular.
Keep us laughing, please. That's Rob. Well, have I said it that many times? I don't think
50
I have.
over 20 years isn't much.
Well, that's true.
A couple times a year.
A couple times a year. That's very true. In other words, as many times as Lou Nanny sets foot in Minnesota.
Pretty much,
point, right?
Yeah.
About twice a year.
At this point, yeah.
Booth that, I should say, Bradshaw and Bright KFAN text line is open, 646-86. I'm driving to Chippewa Falls, just switched from 100.3 to the iHeart app, and was lucky enough to hear you talk about flaunting the crack twice. That's Brian from Champlin. I think we could say that on the frequency, too. We have.
You can, but the stream is a little bit delayed, so he was just happy that he got to hear both.
He got to hear both. So in other words, he's saying he got
both
to hear
options.
Twice?
Yes.
Is what it amounts to? Zendaya. Did I pronounce that wrong? That's what I'm told.
Either way.
I think this should have saved the butt cleavage stuff for Kessler. We can revisit it.
Yes, we can. He's listening right now, so I'm sure he's adding it to the list.
I gotta think he's adding that to the list. I mean, I don't intend to spend as much time with that. I'd rather do more on the drone story than the butt cleavage story. You think it's a subject Glenn Mason will want to explore?
Probably not.
Not really?
He's going to walk in and say, I'm going to class this show up.
He's like, what are you talking about? What are you doing?
He's feeling all patriotic after Army, Navy. Feeling good about the future.
Probably not a lot of butt cleavage there. Well, whatever butt cleavage there would be just the uniform. It is just a wardrobe malfunction.
Correct.
Right? Because the players are playing so hard. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Yes.
Because there's an occasional butt cleavage moment in a football game, is there not?
There have been, yeah. Of course.
Yeah, it happens. In the National Football League or in college football as well. Kessler will join in studio probably, as I said, about 5:30. Do you have questions for Glenn Mason? And do any of them have anything to do with college football? That's sort of the trend when it comes to the Mason Your Face Hour. People want to talk about other things. I'm sure he'll want to regale us with some Army, Navy stories. And he sent us videos, as you know. Of
yes. We got hour-by-hour updates.
His hotel suite.
Yep.
And then a Christmassy shot from, what did it look like? It was a train station?
Probably the train station, right?
Yeah, with a beautiful Christmas tree in the background. And Mace's date for both occasions as well. So I'm sure we'll get to a little of everything. I hope we spend at least 5 or 10 minutes on the first football weekend of the playoffs, especially Mace breaking down my team's chances to go to South Bend, Indiana, the Indiana Hoosiers, and shock the world by beating Notre Dame in a first-round college football tournament game. Mace in your face. That's next.
You wake up. Put on your Ray-Ban Meta glasses. You're living all in. You realize you need coffee. So you say,
hey, Meta, how do I make a latte?
Brew 2 shots of espresso.
After Meta AI gets you caffeinated, you're ready for some beats.
Hey, Meta, play hip-hop music.
You head to meet some friends, but can't remember the place.
Hey, Meta, call Eva.
Ray-Ban Meta glasses, the next generation of AI glasses. Just say, hey, Meta, to harness the power of Meta AI. Shop now at meta.com/smartglasses.